Hi, everybody. Welcome to our show. This is English Digest, and I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
It's our society unit today.
Whoa.
How to be an outstanding member of a society. And we're asking the question, who's to blame for victim blaming? You may have heard of this concept before, victim blaming. If someone is the victim of a crime, sometimes we actually blame the victim. Well, you know, that wouldn't have happened to you if you hadn't dressed that way, or if you hadn't been walking through that neighborhood at that time of day.
Or you should never have been carrying 30,000 NT dollars in your purse at the time. That was stupid.
So it's all your fault. You deserve to have been robbed because it's all your fault. But, of course, we know that the criminal is the person to blame. If there weren't a criminal, there wouldn't have been a crime, right? But we do have this concept now of victim blaming, and we're going to try to find out what it's all about, why people do it, and what we can do to maybe stop doing it and make the victims feel a little bit more, understood by people, and maybe we can reduce crime in the process. Who knows? But let's get to it, everybody. Let's read the entire contents of our lesson right now, and then we'll talk about it.
Imagine taking a midnight stroll in your favorite park when all of a sudden your worst nightmare comes true. A hooded man suddenly pulls a knife on you and demands your wallet. Startled and terrified, you quickly hand your cash over to him and he runs away. After such an incident, you might think that everyone would show compassion for you while condemning the criminal's actions. In the real world, however, this is not always the case. There are always a few people who will criticize you for going out late all by yourself. This mindset is known as victim blaming, and it exists in every society throughout the world. Victim blaming can occur in several different forms. We frequently hear the term used in relation to rape cases, where people inquire about the victim's sexual history or criticize them for being reckless. People blame the victim in minor crimes as well, such as pickpocketing. In this case, they might tell a victim this wouldn't have happened if they had placed their wallet in a front pocket. Victim blaming can be direct, but in many situations, it takes place on a subconscious level. This raises the question of why we blame victims. One theory, called the just world hypothesis, suggests that we tend to believe that everyone deserves what happens to them. This is a convenient way of telling ourselves that the world is always fair and logical, when in reality, it's not. Another theory is that victim blaming is a defense mechanism that we use to feel more secure. We blame the victim while thinking about what we'd do differently to avoid the situation. This mindset allows people to feel like they have more control over their lives and enables them to sleep better at night.
Okay, everybody, the subject for today is victim blaming. And who's to blame for victim blaming? Yeah, whose responsibility is this particular concept? Well, let's sort of introduce this topic by imagining a situation. Imagine taking a midnight stroll in your favorite park when all of a sudden your worst nightmare comes true. Okay, I think I'll just talk about this sentence up till now. You're taking a midnight stroll in your favorite park. Okay, a stroll is just a relaxing walk that you go someplace. You're just walking for the pleasure of it.
Yeah.
You're just maybe looking at the trees, listening to the birds, having a casual conversation with your partner, just kind of walking along. And you're taking this midnight stroll in your favorite park, okay? So it could be Da'an Park. It could be any other kind of park that is near your house. But again, this stroll is taking place at midnight. But then all of a sudden, your worst nightmare comes true. A nightmare could be a bad dream, but also it could be what you think could be the worst thing that could happen to you. You might get robbed, you might get raped, you might get beat up, or you might even get killed.
It's true. I lived in New York City where they have Central Park, and every woman in the city knows better than to go to the park after, I would say, say 10 o'clock. 10 p.m. at night, it gets very, very scary, very dangerous. So, yeah, there are some things that you need to take into consideration. But if the world were good, we wouldn't have to. We could just walk around without being assaulted or attacked. Well, here's the guy. He's got a hoodie on. We call those jackets that have hoods on them these days hoodies, which is H-O-O-D-I-E, a hoodie. And we'll often just say he was wearing a hoodie. Instead of he had a jacket with a hood on. No. So he was a hooded man. So he had pulled that hood over his head. And he suddenly pulls a knife on you and demands your wallet. If you demand something, you tell someone, I must have this. Give it to me. We also use this word to talk about the pressure or the weight of life or a job on us. Oh, I have a lot of demands on me. But here, it just means someone is very insistent. They want you to do something or give them something. And it's hard to say no, especially with this guy, right?
Right, he's got a knife here. He's pulled it out, and he's pointing the knife at you, and he's demanding your wallet. Here, demand is a verb. You can demand a lot of things of other people, but in any case here, the robber here is demanding your wallet. Give me your wallet or your life. And startled and terrified, you quickly hand your cash over to him and he runs away. So you're startled. That means you're suddenly afraid of something, very surprised by something, and probably a little bit scared as a result.
Yeah.
If you, come up to somebody and they don't know you're there until you're like only a foot away from them. Oh, wow, you startled me. I didn't know you were there. And also here you could be terrified, which means you're really, really scared. So you're probably shaking and you hand your cash over to him. This is the verb phrase to hand something over to someone, to give it to them, basically. And then he runs away with your wallet and your cash.
Yeah, in fact, you'll see television shows and movies where you'll see the criminal say, hand it over. Hand it over now. So we're all told just to give whatever they want to them, because if you resist, a lot of these people are either injured or killed. So be careful. After such an incident, you might think that everyone would show compassion for you. Well, that's what you would think, right? But it's not true. When you show compassion towards somebody, you look at the situation they're in and you feel a lot of sympathy for them. You show them that you care about them. You're concerned about all the suffering they've gone through. And you don't say, well, stupid, why'd you go to the park, That's not showing compassion. Instead, it's condemning that person for their actions. Instead of condemning the right person, of course, which is the jerk, the criminal, who had the hoodie on and a knife. A criminal is a person who has committed a crime.
Exactly, right. So, yes, you would expect people to show compassion. Oh, this terrible thing happened to me.
Yeah.
Oh, you poor thing. Are you all right? Oh, please, do you want to talk to me? Do you want to go see somebody about that? Did you get hurt? Let's go to the doctor. But instead, they might actually do something else. You want them to show compassion, to show sympathy, and then say, oh, that criminal is such a nasty person.
Yeah.
He probably has a bad family background, a poor education. What a terrible thing of that person to do. You are the victim, and that person is a real meanie there. Well, in the real world, though, or however, this is not always the case. This does not always happen. There are always a few people who will criticize you for going out late all by yourself. Yeah, I can sympathize with you. Being robbed is probably a very traumatic thing, but
totally.
What the heck were you doing walking out at midnight? Don't you know better? Midnight is the time when criminals come out looking for dummies just like you.
Yeah, that's something you really don't want to hear when you're in shock or you're, all upset from something that's happened. Now, there are always a few people, like Tom just demonstrated, who will criticize you for going out late all by yourself. This mindset is known as victim blaming. I've also heard it referred to as victim shaming, to shame someone for doing something. And, that's the last person you should be making feel bad. A mindset is just the way you look at seeing things, your perception. It's kind of this established set of attitudes that someone has come up with. Our mindsets are all a little different, I would say. Although we tend to hang out with people who agree with our own, views, our mindsets. Although I have really different friends. I can't always say that.
Yes, but oftentimes people have the same mindset throughout their life, etc. So sometimes talking to people that you're not accustomed to can be kind of upsetting. But in any case, we do have this mindset people who are criticizing you for being probably the person who caused the crime in the first place. If you had taken some precautions ahead of time, this would not have happened to you. So that's a mindset. It's victim blaming, victim shaming, but it happens all over the world. And in the next paragraph here, it says, victim blaming can occur in several different forms. Okay, we just mentioned one example there, but let's go on and find out what sort of different kinds of victim blaming there are. We frequently hear the term used in relation to rape cases when people inquire about the victim's sexual history or criticize them for being reckless. Okay, so if a woman says she was raped, for example, people will ask about her, well, you know, what's your sexual history? You know, did you sleep around with a lot of guys before?
Yeah.
Do you have a history of dressing kind of scantily and stuff like that? Which is kind of implying that she sort of asked for it.
Yeah, did you drink too much? Oh, maybe you just should never have gone out that night. Things like that. So in relation to means when you're talking about that one thing, this is the topic. Now, when people inquire about something, to inquire just means to ask about something, to ask some questions. You need some information. So you can inquire about the victim's sexual history. Tom did a great job of explaining what that is. Some people just have comments about your clothes. Yeah, well, you sleep around, so, you know, why should we believe you? And they also criticize them for being reckless. If you're reckless, you don't care about danger. You do things that are stupid without thinking first about the consequences that might happen if you do it. So, for example, when I was a teenager, I had an older brother who was a reckless driver. He would drive as fast as he could every time we were in the car together. So, just to get me screaming. But yeah, being reckless is not ever thinking about the danger of your actions.
Yeah, reckless does seem to most often be used with the word driver. Reckless driver, somebody who's not careful, etc.
Yeah.
But this is also describing the victim of a rape case. Maybe you're being too reckless, you're not being careful enough, and people blame the victim in minor crimes as well, such as pickpocketing, people taking money from you when you don't know it. I think actually some kind of pickpocketing ring was busted a couple of months ago, but we'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes if we have time. But what we're going to do right now is to take a little bit of a break. Oh, I'm so tired. I need a break. So let's turn things over to the Chinese teacher now.
Hello everyone, my name is Tina. 在今天一刚开场呢，提到了在公园午夜时分散步，碰到有人拔出刀子要你交出钱包，这时候心里面的感受是如何呢？我们来看到第一段的第三个句子 Startled and terrified, you quickly hand your cash over to him and he runs away. 在这里我们要介绍一下它的句型，用形容词来开头，其实前面省略掉了 being, a startled 跟 terrified 都是形容词 startled 代表着是吃惊的意思 to be startled at something 代表着是对某个事物感到非常的惊讶感到吃惊又很害怕很快的把钱交给了他那这个人他就跑掉了继续后面的句子提到After such an incident, you might think that everyone would show compassion for you while condemning the criminal's actions. 其实在经历这样的事件incident 之后呢，你也许会认为每个人都要对你表示怜悯。Compassion 就是有同情、怜悯的意思，而同时呢，会 condemning， 也就是会谴责这名罪犯的行为。Condemn 其实就是有责难跟谴责的意思。We condemn his foolish behavior 代表着就是我们谴责他的愚蠢行为但真实的世界是这样子吗后面的句子告诉我们 In the real world, however, this is not always the case 你可能会觉得很奇怪事实上现实生活当中事实并非如此因为会有一种现象也就是我们今天所强调的主题叫做 victim blaming 反而会去责怪这个受害者这样的现象是存在着的我们接着来看到在第二段的第二个句子提到 We frequently hear the term used in relation to rape cases when people inquire about the victim's sexual history or criticize them for being reckless. 其实呢，比较常听到这个所谓的 victim blaming 这样子的 term， 这样子的词汇呢，常常是跟所谓我们看到的强暴的案件有关。In relation to 就是与什么有关的意思。因为当时呢，人们会去 inquire 询问这个受害者他过往的姓氏，或者会批评他们 criticize them for 为什么要批评他们呢？因为讲到这些受害者实在是太不小心了。在这里的 reckless 当作形容词，就是有鲁莽的或者是不注意的意思。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We're talking about who's to blame for victim blaming. We started out with an example of a crime, somebody taking a midnight stroll in their favorite park when all of a sudden their worst nightmare comes true. A hooded man or a man in a hoodie suddenly pulls a knife on this person and demands the wallet of this person. They'll also try to take your rings and jewelry that you might have on. I tend not to wear very expensive things when I go to certain areas of the world. You know, just to be careful. Don't wear, some big diamond rock ring in a place where you expect you might have a little difficulty. So this person is startled and terrified. Of course, they quickly hand over their cash and this guy runs off. After this experience, you would think that this person would get a lot of compassion from friends and family, but no. Sometimes these people who are victims are criticized by people around them for not being careful enough, for being too reckless. Yeah.
And so we mentioned the example of rape cases when people will say, well, let's talk about your sexual history, and you're kind of reckless there. You went to some place you shouldn't have gone. Maybe you had too many drinks or something like that. So, yeah, it wouldn't have happened if you had taken these precautions.
Yeah, and the phrase that is always used is, she was asking for it.
She was asking for it, or maybe she wanted it at the time, and then later she changed her mind or something like that. These things can happen, or these explanations can be given. And we also mentioned the example of pickpocketing. And in this case, they might tell a victim this wouldn't have happened if they had placed their wallet in a front pocket. Most men go around with their wallets in their back pocket, probably their right back pocket, because most people are right-handed. I suppose you'd put it in your left back pocket if you're left-handed.
Oh, yeah.
But that's probably where the pickpockets are going to go. Hey, most men put their wallets in their right back pocket, so that's where I'm going to go bump into them and just say, oh, excuse me, but while you're doing that, just reach your hand in there and take it out.
Yeah.
And say, oh, somebody pickpocketed my wallet today. Well, you dummy, you shouldn't have put your wallet in your back pocket. You should have put it in your front pocket.
Yeah, but people, that's an ordinary choice to put your wallet there. I know that one day somebody stopped me on campus. I was still in college, and they stopped me because my backpack zipper was open completely in the back. And they're like, hey, did you know your backpack's open? But anyway, yeah, you just have to take extra precautions sometimes. Now, in this case that we're talking about, they might tell the victim this wouldn't have happened. They'd place their wallet in that front pocket. When I go traveling, though, I do that. I have one of those, fanny packs, but I put the fanny pack in front of me so that I can see what's happening with my passport and my money. So victim blaming can be direct, where they just tell you, flat out, well, you were stupid to go to the park to walk at that hour. Or sometimes it happens on a subconscious level, which is interesting. If something happens on a subconscious level, you're not actively doing or saying something, but it's going on in your mind. It's like at the back of your mind. You may not be aware that you feel this way, or that something you're doing or saying is giving that impression to somebody. You don't mean it, but it happens because of your mindset.
Yeah, one time I was traveling in the Philippines with a friend, and he had his passport stolen. And, of course, he was blaming all the people there. Oh, they're just a bunch of criminals here and stuff like that. But subconsciously, I think I was thinking,
what?
Well, if you wouldn't have been so reckless and not so careful, you wouldn't have lost the passport or it wouldn't have been stolen. I do admit that I was probably thinking that on a subconscious level, as he probably asked for it. He should have been careful. I didn't lose my passport. He did. So
yeah,
must have been his fault. Yeah.
Especially if you have a friend who's really kind of sloppy, doesn't take care of his stuff. You kind of tend to go, well, dude, you really weren't taking care of it. Now, let's go on to the last paragraph here. It says this raises the question of why we blame victims. One theory called the just world hypothesis suggests that we tend to believe that everyone deserves what happens to them. Darn it, I don't believe this. So just world hypothesis is the name of this theory. A hypothesis is a word that we use a lot in science and research. It's an idea or proposed explanation that you've made based on limited evidence. You haven't really tested it yet, but it's a starting point for further research. This is the just world hypothesis. And, some people out there, I hope they're on a lot, believes that everything that happens to you, you deserve it. I don't believe that. Sometimes there are just bad people in this world.
Yeah, or we don't really believe in random chance that things happen to us for a reason because we did something. We sowed the seeds and we reap what we sow, stuff like that. So that's what the just world hypothesis is all about. We tend to believe this, not all the time, but most of the time we believe that, hey, we deserve what we get. We deserve what happens to us. If somebody robbed us, we must have done something to deserve it. To deserve means you get what you should get. To deserve something,
you earned it.
You earned it, right. So you could say, well, the person got beat up. He deserved it. Okay, he was a bad guy to begin with. That should have been done, for example. Now, this is a convenient way of telling ourselves that the world is always fair and logical, when in reality, it's not. Yes, we like to believe that the world is logical, that everything works for a reason, and there are explanations for everything, but sometimes there just isn't. But we want to convince ourselves that things are fair, things are logical.
Yeah, and now we're going to talk about this other theory that seems more likely to me. Another theory or idea is that victim blaming is a defense mechanism that we use to feel more secure. A defense mechanism is something we do or say to ourselves that makes us feel like, well, I'm innocent. That would never happen to me. I'm just smarter than they are. And it makes us feel more secure. If you're secure, you feel like you're protected, that nobody can get at you. I think this is an interesting idea. I think I would fall into this group much more than the just world hypothesis.
Makes sense. Defense mechanisms are being used all the time to explain our actions. When other people do it, it's bad. Hey, that person just ran the red light. What a bad person. When I jump the red light, it's because I have some kind of emergency or something. I'm justified. So that's a defense mechanism. And we want to feel secure, of course. We don't want to feel contradicting ourselves. And we blame the victim while thinking about what we'd do differently to avoid the situation. Yes, you did something wrong there. You went out at midnight. You put your wallet in your back pocket and it was sticking out a little bit. So you're the victim. You should be blamed for that. And so this is what I would do to avoid that situation. I'd take my stroll at 10 o'clock instead of midnight. I'd put my wallet in my front pocket, etc.
Yeah, there are things that you can do to make yourself more secure, not just feel more secure, but more secure. So we do blame the victim while thinking, of course, we're smarter. We're not so reckless. We would do things differently to avoid it.
We always think we're smarter than the average person.
Yes. Well, this mindset allows people to feel like they have more control over their lives and enables them to sleep better at night. Can you imagine thinking you had no control over anything in your life? That's a scary feeling.
That would be terrible indeed. Yeah. And this is quite a complex subject to discuss, this idea of victim blaming. That's why we're going to talk about it some more in our next program. So you'll have to tune in then to find out some more answers to these questions. But right now, before we say goodbye, we'd like to hear from our Chinese teacher.
接着我们来看到第二段的最后一个句子， Victim blaming can be direct, but in many situations, it takes place on a subconscious level. 其实呢，责怪这些受害者是相当直接的，不过在很多的情况之下，它会发生在潜意识的层面。我们呢看到 subconscious S-U-B 就有刺的意思，那么 conscious 当作形容词就代表是意识的，而 unconscious 前面加上 un 则是有无知觉的、无意识的。接着我们来看到有两种理论告诉我们为什么我们会做这个呢？责怪受害者的这样子的行为。第三段的第二个句子提到 One theory called the just world hypothesis suggests that we tend to believe that everyone deserves what happens to them.这种理论呢称之为 just world hypothesis， 在这里的 just 当作形容词，代表是公正的。好，那么呢它叫做公正世界的假说，那它意指着呢就是我们会比较 tend to 倾向于相信呢发生在我们每一个人身上的事情都是我们应该得到的。 deserve 这个字呢当作动词，举个例子来说， They deserved to be punished， 他们应该就是要受到责罚。 He deserves this glory， 他应该要得到这一项荣誉。所以这是一种假说。另外一种理论，我们看到第三段中间提到 Another theory is that victim blaming is a defense mechanism that we use to feel more secure. 其实另外一项理论呢，则指出责怪受害者是我们使用的一种呢 defense mechanism， 防御的机制，会让我们觉得比较安心。在这里的 secure 就是有安全的、安心的意思。为什么会有这样的心态呢？最后一句句子提到 This mindset allows people to feel like they have more control over their lives and enables them to sleep better at night. Mindset 代表是心态跟想法，这样的心态呢，正是让人们觉得可以对自己的生活有 more control， 有比较多的掌握，而且可以让我们在晚上睡觉睡得比较安稳一点。在这里我们要注意一个片语哦， enable somebody to do something， 也就是有能让某人去做某件事的意思。 OK， 以上就是今天的课文讲解，谢谢收听。
That's it for today, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and make sure you join us again next time for another edition of our program. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.